What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of today's very interesting interview in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living on a rock and seeing this video for the first time, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sit Down video. If you're listening to us currently on iTunes or Spotify, welcome in. I hope you enjoy the show as well. Please leave us a detailed review and a 5-star rating. What's up, everybody, and welcome in to episode 183 of the show. I am your host, Jeff Nadu, and there is no show in the organized crime space that has interviewed the people that we have. We talk to people that have been connected to the life of organized crime, whether it's on the streets, the people prosecuting them, or even maybe people that run into them in prison. The mafia is a very interesting subculture. And today, we're going to speak to one of the more interesting people I've ever come across. We're going to talk to a guy who is not Italian. He's actually from the Balkans, and he was an associate with one of the five families, the Gambinos, to be exact. We're going to talk about everybody from Vito Guzzo to Bobby Glasses to even our old friend, Frank Fiordolino. I'm going to introduce you now to a new friend. His name is Pedge Rajkovic. He is a Serb and Romanian. Pedge, I know your story. I've heard you've not done many interviews. You have done an interview with a guy, Michael Hollish, at the Reform Report. You've done some stuff with Matt Cox, but for the most part, you've just kind of you've moved on from that part of your life.
Oh, yeah.
And you're
100%.
a guy who, just as we kind of bring you in here, you have a really interesting story. I mean, you were around people like Bosko Radonic at one point.
Yes.
A Serbian kind of organized crime guy, ran the Westies. So first of all, I ask you, how you doing? How's everything been going? I know your story is quite interesting.
Everything's been going good. I kind of like to get to what you said about how I did this. I started doing it as a favor to Frankie Fiordolino. We reached out over the years, and he basically, hey, can you go on the Reform Report and put your little spin on it the way you do? You make it more alive. So I did that. I did some other interviews with Michael Scott Hollish. I've gone a bunch of other shows, but I think it got to the point where it was just I'm repeating and repeating and repeating.
Yeah.
And I was in the process of writing my book because I would really like to get my life story out there because my life has changed.
It has, and I think obviously you're not. A lot of the people that I spoke to that were in the life are cooperators, right?
Sure.
You are not. You are just someone who you lived a really interesting, wild life, and you just kind of beat some cases, and now you're living your life somewhere else and trying to move on from some of the things you've done. You're a guy who you were born in the 60s. You are, as I said, you're Serbian and Romanian. A lot of people, when they think of the Balkans, obviously you think of Serbia, Croatia, the former Yugoslavia, right?
Exactly.
Romania obviously is to the east of Serbia. You came up though in Ridgewood, which we've always heard, the Giannini Crew, Baldo Amato, people like Patty Catalano and Bobby Glasses. Obviously, Glendale's right there. It's close to Brooklyn. But what a lot of people don't know is there's a large influx of Balkan type folks there. I want to know a little bit about your childhood, what it was like. Obviously, an ethnic household. What was your father like? Was he connected to that world at all?
My dad was not connected to that world whatsoever. My dad was a really bad gambler and alcoholic. We came to the United States like 71, and we lived in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is right on the border with Ridgewood. It was just a few blocks difference. So we grew up on Halsey, and it was a predominantly Italian neighborhood. A lot of Romanians, Yugoslav Serbs, Croatians were there. And once they bettered themselves, they'd go a little higher, Ridgewood, and then from Ridgewood to Glendale, Middle Village, Forest Hills, So growing up, it was hard for me because, I didn't speak English. So my parents just take me around to translate for them everywhere we went. I was the translator, and holidays were horrendous for me because my dad would always do a 3-day binger. then come home and beat on my mom, wreck the house, break things, it was chaotic, and it's something that it took me many, many years to basically grow out of. I'm not like my dad at all. Yeah, I'm stubborn like him, but I'm not like my dad whatsoever. I'm a good dad to my son, trying to set an example. Hence why I'm not doing what I was doing anymore. That's just, it had to stop.
You didn't want to follow the same footsteps as his. You have a very similar story to my own father. He had a similar upbringing, and yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you have to kind of
Yeah.
have the fortitude and the stoicism to not be that person. And you are also kind of someone you would never want to be that guy and have your son hate you or not like you. That's a tough way to survive. What kind of student were you?
I was really a good student, like I excelled. It's just that, growing up, we moved once my parents got divorced. We went from Ridgewood to Glendale, and Glendale was completely Italian. And I grew up with all the Italians, and I used to get the shit knocked out of me because of my name. My first name is Predrag, and if you say it in correct Serbian, it's Predrag. So, they would just make fun of me, got my nose busted. I got picked on, my clothes ripped, Then my mom put me in karate, and then I broke my first face. And it was like, nobody fucked with me after that. And I even changed schools going into instead of going into junior high school in Glendale, I stepped back and put my address under my uncle's name and went to school in Ridgewood just to be around my own people and, the community. And that was, I think, one of the best things I did. But it was tough for me growing up. I didn't have a father figure. I'm gonna be honest. I really yearned for that, and it kind of sucked. My mom had a guy, and this is where I got introduced to criminality. My mom was with this guy, and he was pretty well known in the neighborhood, and he was an acquaintance of Carmine Galante. And I was like 8, 9 years old, and he would be driving me up in his Buick Regal, park out in front, and be like, he used to call me Penguin. He goes, Penguin, stay inside, because I used to waddle when I was younger. And he goes, Penguino, you stay inside. And I remember sitting there, and all these, it was kind of like a touchy neighborhood, it's like some really like weird element, and I'm scared, but nobody fucked with me in that car. And if some old man would come out and be like, hey, your Uncle John said, you to be okay, I brought you a little soda or something. All the old men would always come give me like $5, $10, that's just the way the mobsters operated. So that was my real first, seeing what that's like, and growing up in that area at that time. Bushwick, Ridgewood was notorious for mob influence. I mean, it was just, you couldn't run into a cafe where a bunch of old Italian guys weren't hanging out in front of. It was every 4 blocks. It was just, it was a sight to see back then. I mean, how do you not get turned on to that life?
It was like Bonanno country there. Everybody, all the old school Sicilian. And this is something that I've noticed, like doing this show for so long.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what nationality you are, whether you're black, white, wherever you're from. Money is the best thing we all look for.
Money's green.
Yeah. And to get money, you see these people doing things. You don't really care that it's illegal. You just want to do it. You don't really have a father figure, and you gravitate towards that. You got to be really stoic to not do that. I mean, who wouldn't want money as a 14, 15-year-old kid? I got to ask you, Carmine Galante got taken out in 1979. You were in your teens. Do you remember that day?
No, I wasn't in my teens. I was 1979. I was like 9, 10 years old.
Okay, yeah, you were born in late 60s. Do you remember that?
I remember seeing it on the news, and to me personally, seeing it on the news and seeing the outside of Mary and Joe's restaurant, the back, and I was like, I was just there like a week ago. Like I called him my uncle, and it was I don't know what the word is, but it was just surreal. It was surreal to see that and be like, wow, I was just there. Wow. I remember he took me in one time to get some pizza, and I remember seeing Carmine Galante, but you're a little kid and you're looking up at everybody, and I didn't know what to make of it. I mean, I used to have guys come in my house because he was also connected, you know, this uncle figure or whatever. He was connected to a lot of Spanish people. He spoke fluent Spanish, and he would come in and they would like. The rule was when you go into the kitchen, you leave the guns on the kitchen table, then you go into the living room, and they'd be speaking Spanish, and I could pick it up because I spoke Romanian. It's a Latin-based language, so I would pick up certain things, and I would hear like drugs, you know, money, shoot this guy, do this. So I would be in the kitchen, like holding the gun and going, wow, you know, like this. And then he'd yell, Penguino, don't touch the guns, you know, like that was just a really fucking shitty atmosphere to grow up in. But that's what I emulated.
And yeah, and you don't have much of a father figure, so you would obviously gravitate to that. Did you know what those people did? Did you know that it was bad? Did you know,
I knew it was bad. Think, you know, I had that feeling inside of me, like, you know, the gut don't lie. The gut was always like, it made me scared. So I was like, oh, you know, but I would start to push the envelope, you know, like this uncle figure left his gun home one time. He had 2 guns. So he left his revolver home. What I did, stupid me, I think I was 12 years old. I put the gun in my bag, went to school. And like showing everybody, look what I got. It was like a 357. It was like this. It was, you know, I mean, it was a stupid thing to do, but I did that. Like I just started pushing the envelope. I started robbing kids in the neighborhood for their bikes. I'd go past the driveway to their house, and I just would like see nobody's looking around, jump on the bike. Then I started getting a connection with people that would buy these bikes because they were like mongooses, BMX bikes. So they'd give me like $40 for parts, you know. Hey, for a 12, 13-year-old to have, you know, 20, 40 bucks. And then literally I had this like little stash in my house of like a couple of $100. That's insane, man, you know. And then it was just
you were kind of like the kid in A Bronx Tale without the father. Right. You were out there.
Right.
You know, doing stuff, you know, maybe not the worst things in the world, but not good either.
I mean, I don't want to put myself in that analogy that I was, but it's similar. That story was way better. But I mean, like me, I just didn't have a father figure. And I did at one point have a father figure. But then again, circle right back. That's where I ended up meeting real hardened criminals. I mean, it was just, you know, in the Balkan community, at least, because with the Italian friends I had, I knew when we'd go into the summer kitchens, and you know, up north, that's what we have, summer kitchens in the basements, you know, and then that's where everybody does their like meetings, their dinners, their whatever. So going over there, it would always be like when they went to talk business, here's 20 bucks, guys, go get some candy or some bubble gum, you know, get out of here. And you know, we weren't stupid. We'd come back, put our ear to the door, and we'd hear business being talked about. So I mean, you know, having that and then having this other father figure at, you know, 15, 16, knowing that I'm doing bad and then introducing me to real hardened criminals. I got introduced to Bosko Radonjic, you know, at that time. I got introduced to Vojislav Stanimirovic, Punch's dad. He used to be called Mr. Stan. So, and then after that, it was just, I idolized that. All I was, like I told you on the phone, all I did was run around in a circle. I would stay here a few weeks. I'd stay here a few months. I would constantly be on the move. And that's how I built up a huge following of people and, you know, cliques and everything. I ended up all the way as far as, you know, Bridgeport, Connecticut, all the way down South Jersey, PA and Harrisburg, wherever there was a Balkan community or a friend of a friend, you know, hey, go see this guy. I would just go. That was my thing. I just loved that rush, you know.
So you mentioned, and I want to bring up, you mentioned Bosko and you know, the Punch is, I mean, I'm going to ask you about him. Punch is arguably one of the biggest safe crackers, burglars ever that no one ever talks about. There were Serbian gangsters that were making a lot of money. They were very powerful, but around your early 20s, I want to talk a little bit about Serbia because Serbia is a fascinating country. Slobodan Milosevic takes over in the late 80s. There's a lot of we've heard I did a show on Bosko, and he was a very big nationalist, right? We saw these nationalist communities popping up in Chicago and New York. And what was kind of your knowledge of what was going on where you were from? You know, were you a big nationalist? You were hanging around a lot of Italians and people like that, but were you still kind of dialed into what your home country was like?
Yeah, what ended up happening was growing up in the community, My mom kind of raised me to be Yugoslavian. You know, we're all many different people from one nation. I never really felt Yugoslavian because, like, I don't know, it's just I kind of saw like my culture is my culture, and then like I didn't belong with the other culture, even though we had so many things intertwined that was kind of the same because when Tito was alive and the way he kept it. But I grew up Italian because of the people in Glendale. So I grew up Italian. I mean, like I kind of understood Italian because I spoke Romanian. And it was like every Sunday, one of my friends would call me and, hey, my grandmother wants you to come on. I'd walk in the house and, you know, she'd be like, oh, Pedge, nice to see you. And I'd be like, oh, no, you know, I'd kiss her, senora, this, that. So I kind of grew up that way. I thought I was the biggest cousine until I had a guy I ain't going to mention, but he's right now, you know, active. He said to me straight up, he goes, you could have the tassel, you could have the horns. He goes, you could even put the damn flag in your car. He goes, you're not effing Italian. You know, and I was just like, all right. I kind of felt like it was a slap in my face because I was so with the crew that I grew up with.
Yeah.
But no, when he told me that, I went back and I was like, you know what? And I made it a point to visit back home. And I visited prior to the war starting. And when I came back, I had a whole different perspective. You know, don't get me wrong, I still knew a lot of Albanian people, a lot of Bosnian people. I was friends with Greeks. I was friends with, yeah, I had my political side, but you know, you don't talk politics in church with your friends because that's where you just bump heads. So I was taught that, especially by a good friend of mine that passed away. He was a famous boxer. He trained at Gleeson's gym. His name was Sava the Boxer. He told me, don't like, you know, be friends with everybody. Keep your opinion to yourself because when you start opening your mouth, you're putting a target on your back. Because you don't know which one of those friends don't feel like you feel. Yeah, they're undercover, you know, nationalists, but just don't. So I got Serbian tattoos. I'm very proud of my culture. I never shit on my Romanian side. But I'll be honest. I mean, like, how do you grow up in an area? Like, you cannot grow up 100% Serbian or whatever. You always are going to be mixed with other people. When you go home, it's one way. You understand, you know? So I mean, you being the same thing, you come from a Balkan background. So you know, our mentality is some sick shit. You know what I'm saying? So
there's a lot of, like, I noticed, like, with Albanians, there's some really like sick devout people that are, you know, they're all about it. And look, again, like when you're dealing with nationalism, then we start hearing the T word, right? The TER, you know, that word. And that's where it starts to get a little hairy, if you will. You said you visited Serbia. So you just essentially, from what I'm hearing, you became proud, right, of who you were.
Yeah, because I used to go as a child, and you know, I just had certain memories and whatever.
Yeah.
But when I went back in '89, I got to see it because I really wanted to go back and see my grandmother that I haven't seen in 15 years. So I went back there, and I just couldn't fathom what was going on. They were talking about changing passports, stamping nationalities in it. You know, growing up Yugoslavian, I wasn't getting it. So I started seeing like what's going on. What are you like, you know? And so it was hard for my family as well because when I came back, my Romanian side was tugging at me, my Serbian side was tugging at me, and I just was like, look, you know, we have a saying in Serbia, you know, your father gave you your last name, you are what your father is, you take his religion, his everything. You know, it doesn't matter about the mom. I know with the Albanians, it's total opposite. It's like anybody could be your dad, but if your mother's Albanian, you're Albanian. You know, so you know that kind of like caused a rift in the community for me. And once again, I just fell back with the Italians. They weren't judging, except for that one guy, but he didn't judge. He just made it a point. Be proud of what you are. It came finally to me after, because once he saw me take down the tassel and all of that, he goes, "This is what I was saying." He goes, "I hope I didn't disrespect you." I was like, "No." He goes, "You know, I just wasn't trying to disrespect you." And I said, "No, you didn't disrespect me." I go, it was a good slap in the mouth, a wake-up call, you know? And, you know.
The Balkans are tough because a lot of people may not know this, but at one point it was all Yugoslavia. It was one big nation, right? And all these little republics, if you look into this area, all these little republics, whether it's Montenegro, Bosnia, Croatia, Bulgaria, Albania, they all break off. Even, you know, parts of Serbia, Kosovo becomes its own nation. So you had all the, and what does that lead to? It leads to war. I mean, and Serbia was kind of the precursor. A lot of them, they went to war with you know, Croatia, Bosnia, all these different places. So let me ask you, so you're in your 20s, you're moving around Ridgewood, Glendale, all these places. You get into criminality. You'd been in criminality, you were stealing stuff, whatever. But how do you make that jump? Like, what are you doing? Like, what kind of things are you doing in your 20s?
In my 20s, early 20s, late teens, we were boosting cars. We started boosting car radios first. You know, you walk in, you break the window, you know, center punch, bang, you get in there, break it. Or you pull the window when it was those frameless windows, you know, you pull it, stick your hand and open there's like a little latch right on the side of the door, the cars from the 80s. And we started boosting, you know, stereos. And then we started going into Long Island, and we started getting notorious because Benzie boxes were really big back in the day. And a lot of people, if they don't know what a Benzie box is, it's just a box where you slide your radio in, and you're supposed to take your radio with you so it doesn't get stolen. Well, a lot of morons would put it under their front seat. So, you know, like either we scope people out watching them walk out of their car with no radio, or, you know, we just shits and giggles. Hey, you take those 2 cars, I'll take these 2. We have a posse of like 2 cars, 10 people, We'd get like 5, 6, 7 radios a piece, go back to the neighborhood. All right, we're going to sell these. We're going to go to this pawn shop. We're going to do this.
How much are you getting per radio?
Back then, about $100. If it was a Blaupunk or a Kenwood, Pioneer, 100, 150. It all depends. I mean, with the Benzie box, it's phenomenal because then all you have to do is, because they're universal mounts. So if you have the Benzie box already closed, it just slides into the guy's new, you know.
Right. You just
we started doing that. Radar detectors. We were stupid in the beginning. We didn't think to check. A lot of people kept their credit cards in the visors. So we started getting slick, and we'd go like this, and credit cards would fall down like a gas card or whatever. So we'd have gas for a week. You know, they didn't like shut cards down as quick as they do today.
So what kind of money were you pulling in? Because I mean, you figure $100 in 1980. That's essentially about $400 today.
Well, figure like this. If we had 10 guys in the crew, this is where I started to break off from these people, because we would all supposedly be like divvying up the money. You know, you'd be a driver one day and you drive your car, and everybody would take a turn to rob. Ended up being one guy wasn't robbing enough and trying to call the shots, like a hostile takeover.
Okay.
So now, you know, me and him bumped heads. It was just, I'm not going to mention names. We bumped heads. And it was always like, oh, Pedge will drive. Oh, Pedge will do this. And I'm like, yo, don't talk for me. I'm not going. I used to get these bad feelings about don't go. And the night that I didn't go, they get busted. 4 guys got busted.
She got lucky.
So I got lucky. And, you know, they didn't like that. And they kept like trying to like, I just felt like I was being set up all the time. So, you know what? I disappeared for a bit. And then I ended up hanging out with some people in Staten Island for a few months. Like I said, I moved around a lot. Started hanging out in the Bronx with, you know, ABI and a bunch of other like Albanian gangs, because they're notorious up there.
You and I talked to you about ABI. So back in the day, I used to know certain kids, the kids of the original ABI people. Right. Original ABI started in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yes.
And I know even into the 2000s, there were a bunch of kids that still repped ABI. They were the younger people. I got to ask you, obviously you and I both know Frank Fiordelino. This is a great photo, by the way.
Thank you. Guys. That was in Papagallo's in Astoria.
Yeah, that's a great. How old are you guys here? 20s?
I'm gonna say 20, 22, 21.
And Frank is Sicilian as it gets, right? I mean, he speaks it. You look at a lot of those kids from Fresh Pond, the Giannini kids, the Paul Raguses, the Aces, the guys like that, the original kids. When did you meet them? Was that around this time?
So, I'm going to say 86, 87. There used to be a spot on on Forest Avenue and Catalpa Avenue called Pizza King. And we would all hang out, kids from the neighborhood. I wasn't from Ridgewood. I was from Glendale at this time. But I would come down. I'd bring my boom box. We'd hang out, you know, sit on people's stoops. And then, like, I started noticing this one specific guy, Mark Terragrossa. So
I know Mark. I've talked to him.
Mark Terragrossa, kind of latched on to me for a bit. And I started, showing him how I'm boosting bikes and this and he liked it. This kid just like I flipped the switch on him, and then he started boosting with us. So we would always hang out there. And I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Paulie Ragusa. I think it was Fob and Paulie Ragusa. I'm not sure. They pulled up and I had some words. Now they were known as the Ridgewood Boys because they ended up originally becoming, they originally were a breakdance group. Okay. So you had the Harmon Breakers, you had the Ridgewood Boys, the Italian Stallions, the Italian Juniors, so they were all either little gangs or like, breakdancing artists and this and that. I was even involved when we called the Crazy Yugos and, we'd be doing our popping and locking and everything. So something was said and I'm pretty sure it was Paulie jumped out of the car like, what the fuck, straight up. And Mark jumps and goes, yo, he's my guy. And that's the first time I saw such loyalty from, because Mark is way younger than us, So when I saw that loyalty, I was just like, no, Mark, it's okay. He goes, no. He goes, if you got beef with him, you got beef with me. That was squashed. But that was just because we were on that corner and they were passing by. And Paulie, he was just ready to rock and roll at all times. You know what I'm trying to say? So, Fob was more of a, like, wanted to talk about it, wasn't, but they all fucking did, horrible things. Yeah, so that's how I got introduced to, the Ridgewood Boys. And
what kind of things were those guys doing back then? A lot of like,
honestly, when they started getting, I don't know what they were doing for small things, but, I'm not going to mention the name, but somebody ordered a car from us when we were boosting cars. Like, basically, I know you guys could get this. Specifically told us the color, the make, the model. And we got specifically, I had to have a little cheat sheet. I would open up, be like, yeah, the address is here and here. We want 5 G's for it. And then we go pick it up, bring it to them. And Frank had, verified this. Frank said that, the Yugo crew was the ones that were stealing all the cars. Like, we had Bushwick, 20 cars parked in isolated little areas, like in between regular cars, and the cops wouldn't do plate checks or anything unless somebody complained that the car has been there forever.
So you were such good thieves that you were taking special orders?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we ended up making the newspaper in Long Island. I forgot the name of the paper, but it said, because they specifically knew, they pinched a few of us for certain things and they started doing an investigation, and they were like, I guess because we were speaking Serbian, somebody overheard and said Russian. And then they said, Eastern European, Russian car theft ring, And like I said, I was with them. And then I started branching out on my own because we were bumping heads. And I don't like to answer to anybody, especially when it's somebody that's either below my, caliber or close to me. I'm just like, you know what? Instead of me fighting and doing what I got to do, I'm going to just back away and do my own thing and prove to you that I'm going to make my coin. And that's it,
Let me ask you, because I'm not a criminal. Like, I've never pretended to be. I obviously, like, I've spoken to people that have sold narcotics, right? And I think to them, like, don't you ever think, like, you ever think about, like, you're essentially killing them, right? Like, giving them poison. Did you ever think, like, when you were stealing a car, like, maybe I'm stealing a car of, like, a single mother who has nothing and she needs this car to survive? Do you ever think about those things?
No, never dawned on me. It was just the thrill to do it, and the money at the end of it. It was big money. You know what I'm saying? So you're moving 4 or 5 cars a month.
How much you getting per car?
It depends. I mean, if they just want like a front clip, we'd have a guy that would do that and front clip it. We charge him for the parts. We'd be like, oh, give me 2 G's for this, whatever, 86 Monte Carlo. Because if you wanted to get a front clip, you go to the junkyard, they're going to charge you $4,500. So better to pay us. And we paid some guy to dismantle it. And I mean, it was hilarious what we were doing. Like, Bushwick is filled and all these like back lots, like cars just stripped. And like, then we started getting into tagging and, and like I said, I brought Mark on with me for a little bit. Mark, he's loyal, but Mark did the same thing I did. He branched out and went with everybody, and that's how he got his name, Mark the Terror, because he was a fucking terror, man. Give you a quick story about Mark. We're driving the car and I'm going down Catalpa. And I don't know what it was. When we got to Forest, there was some dude. I don't know. The way it was like I saw the guy, but I don't know if he made a gesture towards Mark. But Mark didn't even wait for me to stop the car to a complete stop. He just opens my door, flies over my hood, and just, bah, bah, karate kicking, this and that, beating the shit out of this kid. Then the kid gets up. He's like, yo, what? He goes, dance, motherfucker. Bah, 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 bah. That's how insane Mark
It's a
was.
sick guy, yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest. I wanna stress this. It's a young man's game. When you're young, dumb, and full of cum, you will do everything to get a name for yourself on that street. And you know what? Don't get me wrong. Every guy who's shot somebody probably has some remorse in them, and they're like, "Oh, I shot somebody." But in that life, you learn to just like block that shit out. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things I did bad, and it doesn't strike me at that time while I'm doing it. It starts striking me when my son was born. It starts striking me when my car got stolen back to back 3 times when I lived in Brooklyn. My car was stolen. Like they saw my car, they saw my Gotti rims, they just wanted my car. That even I took the steering wheel off the second time when I got my car fixed. They put vice grips and they fucking stole the car with no fucking steering wheel. So that's when it started hurting me. When it started coming out of my pocket, that I was like, wow, all those cars I stole. Now I know what these people feel like. You understand?
Sure.
And karma doesn't come full circle right away, but it will come to somebody that's close to you, and you'll feel it. You'll feel it. So I have a lot of remorse. And people say, "Oh, you laugh when you tell stories." Well, it's fucking funny. I'm sorry.
It is funny, And you also were in your 20s, right? I'm not making an excuse, but like I always found it interesting that in this country we assume that someone when they turn 18 and is an adult, you don't become an adult and truly mature until you're in your late 20s, into your 30s.
30s.
One thing that I've noticed, I've interviewed a lot of younger folks.
Sure.
I've talked to Mark, I've talked to Frank, I've talked to all these guys. Obviously, you're impressing people. You're
100%.
doing stuff. You're making money.
Getting a reputation. Yeah.
Yes. Eventually, the mafia is going to come calling.
Yeah.
And one of the names that we've heard associated with you, I'm going to get into Bosco and some other things, but one of the names that we hear is obviously Bobby Glasses
yes, sir.
Vernace. Bobby Glasses, I've done a show on. I think he's a super interesting guy. Kind of a low key guy, but eventually he's on the Gambino panel. He eventually died in prison. When did you first meet Bobby? I know you were moving around with Vito Love at one point as well, who was with Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about Bobby. When did you meet him?
Bobby, I met around the first time, early 90s, and that was because of a sit-down that was initiated by somebody. I had a bar in Ridgewood on Fresh Pond Road called the Mood Lounge, and it was, long story short, I came in zero money. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a pot to piss in, and the guy that owned the establishment and the building was a known banana, he's in that life. He's made. Mm-hmm. So his son, his associate, he goes to me, "Whatever you want, Pedge. You're a good guy. You're a good earner. Everybody loves you." I said, "All right, so I'll take a note with you. I'll pay off whatever." I paid the place off in 6 months. Towards the end of around the second, third year that I had the place, I lost the flavor because mine was an ethnic Serbian bar, the first ever to exist in Ridgewood. Everything was always Yugoslavian, Romanian, but never. There was Albanian bars, but it was never, except for the Serbian club, there was never a Serbian establishment. And to open up on Fresh Pond Road, which is Italians only, I got it opened. I had a meeting, sat down with people, and I was just like, "Here's what I want to do. No disrespect to anybody." They were like, "Yo, as long as so-and-so is happy, we're happy." So the rent's paid, the note's being paid. I didn't have to pay protection money. Well, this is what ended up happening. I had one little incident where one of the Antonucci's, Mike Antonucci, came fresh out of jail. I know you've heard that name. Mm-hmm. And he came straight in my bar. I wasn't there. I was at my work. And I'm getting calls saying, "Yo, this guy's trying to muscle." So then I show up. And when I got there, as I opened the door to get in, my ex-wife comes out. All I heard was pop, pop. And they're like, I felt the door shake. And I look, they were shooting at us. It was a message. Mike Antonucci shot at us. So he came back again when I'm not around, trying to, strong arm for money. So then I called the owner of the building and I said, "We have an issue." He goes, "I'm going to order a meeting." He orders a sit down. That went fucking horrible. It went horrible. This guy denied I never would take a shot. You know me. You know my family. of course, we both know the guy's full of shit. And he needless to say, he got picked up like 2 months later for like double homicide or whatever. So, but I asked the guy to come in to do after hours with me towards the end because I just really lost the flavor with my Serbian community. They were just being mad disrespectful, calling the cops. Jealousy was running rampant. You know, I couldn't deal with it. And I was just like, you know what? Let me do this after hours, see if I can make money. So I made a deal. I said, yo, 2 weeks you come in. And if I don't like the way it's going and I'm not feeling it, you get to go. You got to go. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's a week and a half in. I'm like, yo, I'm not really feeling it. Oh, no, this is the way it's going to be. We made a deal. We shook a hand. I was like, no. I was like, I'm going to go to Bobby. Go right ahead. I don't care. And he went to Bobby. And Bobby ordered me to come in. And I didn't know who he was. I mean, I heard of him. Everybody knew his cafe on the corner, you know, in Glendale. So I was like, you know, I called up Vito. I was just like, yo, Vito, I'm asked to come in. He goes, yeah, I'll be waiting for you. So I get there and he goes, this is the guy I was telling you about. This is Pedge, you know, and, you know, shakes my hand. He goes, hey, sit down. He goes, what's going on? I go, nothing. He goes, so-and-so came to me, this and that. And here he comes, the guy that issued this freaking sit down. And he's changing the story. He's like, oh, he said this, that I'm going to be his partner, this and that. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to be my partner. It's like, you're the biggest coke dealer in the whole neighborhood. Get the hell out of here. You're selling this shit in my bathrooms. I'm like, nah, you got to go, you know? So when I said that, Bobby just like, look, he goes, is that true? Because, you know, they're kind of, I mean, the Gambinos are involved in, you know, drugs, but he was just like, if this guy doesn't want it, and especially they know whose building that belongs to, they're like, yo, did he okay it? So now we get them involved. The father's not okay with it. The son is like, I really don't care as long as we're getting money one way or another. And I just was like, look, he needs to go. I go, I'll shut the place down. To me, I'll take a loss. I'll just put the gates and lock it up. So what ended up happening was I stayed open for a little bit longer. I started doing gay night and whatever, but Bobby gave me the okay. Bobby was like, you do what you need to do to make money. He goes, that's all I care about. And come see me, you know, if you have a problem. So that was my intro, you know. And then after that, I just got carte blanche to come in there all the time, you know. And I came in there a lot. He helped me out, you know, when I was down and out, when I sold the place and I was trying to like get a little hustle on the street going on. I went to him and I said, I already know how it is. He goes, no. He goes, everybody's told me you're a guy who gives envelopes to show respect. You got face, you know. And I said, okay. He goes, what do you need to do? I'm for a little money maybe or yeah, whatever. He goes, all right, gave me a route to do machines, which was, you know, to take somebody off of that and to put me on it, which even though that was only like $750 a week, $1,000 a week, it really helped me out at that time. I wasn't working. I had a comp case going on. I wasn't getting paid. I had a mortgage. It was really horrendous. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to go back to my old drug dealing. You know, I already got pinched for that once. And, you know, it's just like second time you get pinched, especially with coke, you do some hard time, man. You know what I mean? Like you get caught with like more than like 350s. That's like weight. It's weight for them. You know, it's no joke. So he was a straight up gentleman. Bobby Glasses, the stories that you hear about him, yeah, he was straight gangster. But let me tell you, you know, he came calling me one time. There was an issue that he had. His Gumara, she was Romanian, Dora, and she had a problem with her sister. Had a place on Seneca Ave, a little like Romanian after hours place. A lot of Yugoslavian people came there, Albanians as well. She had live music, and something happened in the place with this Albanian guy. Long story short, the Albanian guy threw some bottles at the owner. She calls Vito. Fucking huge explosion happens. I get called to come in. Bobby's like, you know these people. Who's who? So I had to break it down. Who's who? Is he going to do something? Is he going to retaliate? I said, no, he's nobody. But he's got connections to what's his name? Oh my God. See, the names are escaping me. From the Bronx, the Albanian guy. He was the fifth. Rudai. So I go, he's got connections to Rudai. I don't know if he's going to go because in this world, nobody tells the truth about what their beef is. They always make it bigger and more grandeur. So I go, he may go and say somebody took a shot at him first. I don't know, you know, because let's just say the crew that Vito came with, they beat the fucking piss out of this guy. And this guy's yelling at me in Serbian, hey, are you like, hey, brother, are you going to let, I say, we ain't brothers. I was like, I grew up with these kids. I was like, me and you, we just know each other to mutual people. We're in the same community. I go, these guys are gangsters. He goes, oh, you don't know who we are. And I'm like, so now is it we or is it me? Or, you know, like, so I just backed off. I was just like, I'm not taking a side. I'm going to be on the fence with this. But, you know, talking to Bobby, he told me exactly what happened. I told him what happened. And then Bobby goes, I need a favor from you. I was like, yeah. He goes, I heard you put your CDs. I used to be a DJ and I used to make CDs. So all my CDs were in that jukebox, all custom-made CDs, mixes and everything. He goes, I need you to go get them. He goes, they're going to be shut down, no music. I bet. I went, told the owner. Owner goes, tell Bobby I'll give them to him tomorrow. It's busy tonight. It's Friday. Said, that's exactly what Bobby sent me. You say no, I guarantee you in an hour when I go back, some shit's going to pop off. Sure enough, he said no. And an hour later, about 3 cars show up with bricks, hammers. The place was completely plate glass windows, okay? So it's like 6 plate glass windows, the front doors, everything is glass. All you heard, you know, like patrons were getting hit by glass, by bricks, by hammers. So they got shut down for about a month, okay? Needless to say, that next day, I got a call from one of the owners, Adrian. He's like, hey, you want to come pick up your CDs? I go, I really don't need them right now. I was like, do what you want with them. I was like, your message was given to you, you know? Now, they kind of like didn't like me after that. They really got pissed at me. Well, why didn't you, you know, put in a good word? Put in a good word what? What do you want
your people, right?
Yeah, like, yo, don't you understand what you did? Like, but, I mean, you know.
So basically, Bobby was the man in that area, right? He did what he had to do. He sent messages.
Well, there was many people that were, you know, the men in that area, okay? Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want to start going names because people are still active. I mean, some of them got shelved, but it's not the point. I'm not going to disrespect anybody. I'm not going to throw shade on anybody. You know, I was blessed to know a lot of these people, you know, growing up, Ralphie Shula. He was my first, like, when I wanted to deal coke. He was with
Bobby too, right?
Yes. He was like almost like a protege of Bobby's.
I've heard that.
I was never introduced to him. Like, I would see him at the festival. I'd see Bobby, and I'd see Shula go up there and give him a kiss, you know. But it was always like, I'd be like, who's that? He's like, oh, that's Bobby, you know. I'm like, okay. He would never introduce, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was just like a thing that you started to growing up learning who you could say hi to and who you can't, you know? Right. So I was just, like I said, I was groomed for that, you know? But Ralphie, I asked him one time that he was working in the pizzeria. I used to make him mixtapes. He liked me. And I said, hey, I really want to get into this game. He's like, I don't want to be doing boosting radios and whatever. I want to start dealing. He goes, you come to me, I'm going to hook you up. First, he gave me an ounce, told me how to pack it, how to cut it. You know, he gave me my ins and outs. And I got shot a few months after. I guess I was selling in the Farmers Oval Park, and it was somebody that didn't want me selling there. But it wasn't a coke spot. It was more of a weed spot. But they came and they shot me. They made like they were going to buy something, and they just pulled out a gun, shot me in the leg, you know, robbed me, took my shit. And I went back to Ralphie, heard about it, you know. I went to Ralph to the pizza. I was like, yo, I don't have the money to give you. I was robbed. He goes, yeah, I heard about that. Did you see the guy's face? Say, I don't think they're from here. I think they were from Ozone Park. So he goes, all right. He goes, we're going to take care of this. I was like, all right. All I heard through the neighborhood, somebody got shot. And it was somebody in Ozone Park. So next time I see Ralphie was at the feast on 18th Avenue in Brooklyn. And I see him and he's like, you know, pinky ring, diamond, glittering, got 2 girls on each hand, comes up to me. He's like, I took care of that. You know, like kisses me. I took care of that. I was like, oh, good looking out, bro. You know,
those kids were, them kids were, you know, they were doing things, man. And, and Shula obviously got taken out eventually, but
that was sad. That was very sad, man.
Yeah, I've heard that story. I want to ask you, Frank is a guy who's really kind of a mysterious guy on here, right? I think he kind of maybe downplays, I think, at times who he was. Yeah. You know, I know, you know, I heard you kind of talk about him on Reform Report. You know, Frank seemed like a real respected guy, and he had a bit of a temper at times, right?
Yeah. Frank, Look, Frank was raised in that life. His brother, God rest his soul, Joe, was a made guy. And they grew up around that. And Frank, I don't know if he was trying to make his bones because, he's walking in his brother's shadow. I got to see a side of Frank that most people don't get to. Okay. I got to see the nice side, the funny side, and I got to see the shiesty side, the fucking, the gangster. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And he was mad respectful, man. He would, if he saw my mother walking on Fresh Pond Road, he'd be like, "Hey, senora," give her a kiss, walk her home. And she used to walk around. Frankie used to make a joke, said my mom was the chin gigante because she used to walk around in a bathrobe. And that was my mom. She'd walk around in a bathrobe, walking her little shih tzus, curlers in her hair with a little, handkerchief.
They don't
over
do that
her
anymore. People don't do that anymore. Walk around
No.
with bathrobes on and stuff.
No, man. But that's like an old Balkan thing too, like barefoot too. Like they walk around barefoot.
Listen, Pedge, I'm not gonna lie to you. I live in a nice community. I walk up and down I get a little sun. I have a robe. I wear a robe outside. I love that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't wear
day.
a robe, but whatever I crawl out of bed in, I go walk the dog first thing in the morning. My hair's like this, people are like, "Hey, good morning." I'm like, yeah, I need my coffee. I need to sober up, Right. But yeah, Frank was a character. I think, like I said, I think he was trying to make his bones. I got to see that side of Frank making his bones. So to me, the story that comes to mind is when he popped this guy Charlie,
Yeah, you got to tell that story.
Yeah, so I've repeated it so many times, but it's I'll repeat it again. It's no problem. We're sitting in a social club. This Serbian kid had a social club that he took from the Italians. It was / a video club / but it wasn't making any video profits. So he had a little card table in the back, pool table, joker poker, and everybody used to have game night. Certain cafes would have game night. They'd have baccarat night. All the other cafes would have to shut down. But this one place, it was like a regular card game every night. Sometimes it would go deep into the morning, be about 10 grand on the table. Serious game. And that night, Frankie comes in with two guys. I'm not going to mention one guy because we already spoke about this guy doesn't want to be mentioned. And the other guy, this guy Bobby. So they come in, they sit down. And, we're playing pool, doing this, doing that, but you could hear the commotion in the background. You just hear Frankie do that again, Charlie. He's blinking, do that again. I'm looking over and I see typical Frankie face. He's like, all right, I ain't going to tell you no more, And I'm like, I got that feeling something's going to pop off, And lo and behold, what I tell you. And I'm like, we all kind of look over, nothing. Then you hear him. Whoa, what did I do? Mink, I didn't do nothing, right? And you just hear it. I told you, pop, 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 and drops the gun. We all look, but I was looking straight at Frankie. He kind of got white in the face. Everybody, when they shoot somebody or when they stab somebody, in that heat of the moment, your adrenaline is running. Your face changes colors. You're not, unless you're Vito Guzzo, but your face changes colors, And Frankie got up, took off, ran, got in the car. They hightailed. We're looking to see. This guy's holding his chest. He's like, "Minchia, he shot at me. You let him shoot at me? Minchia, what I could do? Disgrazia." And we're you're hauling ass out of there. I'm jumping in my caddy. This one's jumping in his car. We're trying to get out of there. This guy coming out, holding his chest, gets in his rib. He's like, "Minchia, I'm not going to forget it, this you motherfucker." Gets in the car, drives himself to Wyckoff Heights Hospital. And sure enough, within a day or two, there's that effing sit down. And, Frankie's not to be found anywhere. And then I find Frankie, where the hell was it? I don't know if it was Cafe Cecilia in Glendale. I see him there. I used to make the rounds, go everywhere, have a cup of coffee, be hopped up on coffee, 15 social clubs, 15 coffees. So I run into Frankie. I was like, "Hey, yo." And he's just like, what? Skittish, And I'm like, "Hey, no, everything's good." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You hear anything about Charlie?" And he said it "Did you hear anything about Charlie?"
I hear him say that. I can hear him say that.
So I was all I go, "Nah." I just heard that, you guys had to sit down. "Yeah, my brother took care of it. It's all." So I kept kind of hitting Frankie up. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you tell me, and Frankie doesn't like to talk like that. But with me, yeah, he would open up, a couple of beers and he'd be like, look, it had to be done. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, he's a fucking pain in the ass. He's a pain in the ass to everybody. He goes, if I wasn't going to do it, who was? I had to make a stand. But, later on, he doesn't really like to talk about that because it was kind of a slap in the face, too, because he had to go through his brother. And I know Frankie didn't like that. I know Frankie was trying to make his own crew, at that time. And shortly thereafter, it was the murder.
Yeah.
That about. So that was something that I saw coming a mile away. I didn't think it was going to go down the way it did.
Kind of the sad end to all these people, right?
I had the cops and the Fed. I didn't know that the Feds were investigating the Giannini Crew. I didn't know any of this. And the night prior, I think night or two prior, the guy that got murdered, Thomas Shine. So I see him. And he's talking to me about cars. I said, look, don't talk to me about cars. Talk to that guy that you made the deal with. Yeah, but he's one of ours. I go, he's not one of mine. I go, he's always been effing me left and right. I said, you made a deal with him, stick with him. I'm not undercutting anybody. And then I see Frankie the next day, and he sees me in this gypsy social club, and I'm hanging out because I was very good with the gypsy community. And he pulls up. He just goes, Pedge. And I'm like, yeah. Where's this guy, Tom? I was like, I don't know. I haven't seen him. He goes, yeah. And he turns to the guy that they made the deal with the cars, and I'll never forget. He just turned and goes, I'm going to fucking cut this guy's head off. Like literally. And I even said to Frankie doesn't like to talk about that. And I don't want to throw shade on Frankie at all. But there was a look in Frankie's eye, like, Frankie says it was more than cars. It was, bearer bonds. It was drugs. Look, it is what it is. Mark Terragrossa was supposed to go to that supposed sit down or whatever the meeting or deal. And lucky for fucking, Mark's then girlfriend / wife, she didn't wake him up. Frankie called him, let's go. We're going to go. He didn't get up. Had he been there, he would have been
accessory
involved in that murder. Yeah, accessory. So he
basically you knew Frank was going to do something bad, and that would ultimately be.
Once I heard, I mean, once the cops came to my house, because the body was found a block and a half from my house, because I used to live right off of Fresh Pond Road in Linden. Down the block, Linden and traffic was all warehouses and kind of abandoned. People used to steal cars, set them on fire, take the tags off. So I get a knock on my door that morning, and it's just like, hey, how you doing? You so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. And they're just like, so, a guy named Thomas Shine? It's like, yeah. When's the last time you saw him? I go, oh, like a week ago. Yo, Black and White's come out. And they going, so this is a week ago? And there's a timestamp. You see that. So I'm going, yo, these guys, I know that they had cameras on one, I know they had on Giannini. We all knew that on Fresh Pond Road there was cameras. I knew there was one by this the cafe all the way down on Menahan that Frankie used to frequent. It was a Sicilian spot. So I didn't know that there was on this, gypsy spot. But the gypsies were notorious for stealing gold and drugs and doing all kinds of stuff. So I guess they were looking for bigwigs. And this guy that got murdered was a bigwig from Canada. He was his family came looking for Frankie. Frankie hauled ass, got the hell out of Dodge, and getting back to the cops asking me, well, how good were you with this guy? I'm like, say hi and goodbye. Again, another Black and White. I'm kissing the guy. I go, yeah, it's just it's a Balkan thing. I mean, what do you, it's just like Italians that kiss each other on the cheek. Well, you know him. It's like, okay, well, he's down the block. So I look down the block. I just see tape, and I see coroner. Yeah. When I saw coroner, the first thing that popped in my head, he went and did this.
He did it, yeah.
And then they asking me, well, where's the driver by name? I said, I don't talk to that guy. He's a scumbag. Well, where's his girlfriend? I don't know. So, after all this, I don't know. And I said, look, and if you want to talk to me anymore, I go, I'm done. I go, here's my lawyer's name and number. You can call them. Slam the door. I go inside. I start making calls. It's all going to voicemail. The beepers, it's just, nothing.
Everybody's
it's like
going, yeah.
Everybody went rogue, MIA. So I didn't see a lot of the people. Frankie, I don't know if he went back to Sicily or if Frankie went to California, because It was one thing about Frankie I knew. Frankie always used to talk to me like he trusted me to talk. And he would always be like, if I ever do get out of this life, I'm going to Cali. He just liked that. He even had the vibe of a Cali, like, you know, like not that street thing. He had that, like the musical tastes. He was friends with everybody. And I mean, when he was in Woodset, he ended up going in that direction. I think it was Walla Walla, Washington or something out that way. I don't know. But he went out that way, you know. So I kind of always knew that's where he would go. And I caught a lot of flack for still talking to Frankie too, because a little thing that you don't know, my fiance and my stepdaughter. So my fiance's ex-husband is related to this guy Thomas Shine. My stepdaughter's last name is Shine. Now, also double connection, my future wife, her family is like cousins. And you know how that works in the Albanian community. You know, third, fourth cousin marries this cousin. Now you're double cousins. You're double, you know, once removed, twice, you know. So I go to New York time to time. You know, everybody's like, yeah, what are you doing? You're making us look bad. Well, what am I doing? They're like, well, first, you know, he's a rat. We don't care. He's not one of ours. Second, he murdered one of ours. And I'm like, yo, dude, that's a gangster life. It is what it is. Like, I can't, you know.
And basically what you're talking about is Frank down the road, you know, he had to face on this and he ended up doing what he did. Thomas Shine's the guy that he took out. You told us that story. So yeah, you know, and everybody knows everybody in those neighborhoods a lot of the time. So
I mean, look, I got questioned, and like I said, they were asking me, where were you, where this and that. What was funny was I kind of felt I was being set up on that, because the time that I did see him, that scumbag guy that I told you that was driving turned around and said, hey, can you move the car by the cafe? So I was like, why do you want me to move? Why don't you get Spider to move it? No. I want you to move it. So, you know, all right, you want me to move it? I'll move it. I moved the car, but I took my shirt and I went like this, all my fingerprints. I knew something was being, you know, like trying to be done to me. And I was trying to be probably set up for that murder to fall, because when they did check the car, they even told me that we're fingerprinting the car. Do what you got to do, because they have the surveillance of me moving that car. But if you got surveillance of me moving the car and nothing else, what are you bothering me for? They, you know how cops are. Cops just want to break somebody. Well, dude, I've gotten beat up by the cops with wet telephone books back in the day, because that's what they used to do to you. Put a wet telephone book and hit you with a baton. Doesn't leave one mark. It just leaves the whole area that's black and blue. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care, man. We all, you know, that's hence where wise guys came from, being a wise ass, you know? So, I mean, I'm not saying like, look, I'm not saying if I was involved in anything, I'm not one to rat. But now in my life, if something comes back to haunt me and there's people dropping dime on me, touche. You know, I don't blame Frankie for doing what he had to do. I don't blame anybody who rats. I mean, the ones that go in intentional and they know they're ratting for a reason, you know, like just to save their ass. They weren't in the game for the real reasons, you know.
Right.
But Frankie, I know Frankie would have took his 30 years. He would have took.
And if you know, also, if you, like I know Frank pretty well. I know you do. Frank lives with it every day. You know, you can tell there's a sadness. And I've always said this, there's certain guys that cooperated. There's a sadness to them. You know, Frank was Ridgewood, right? I'm sure he'd kill to go back there and just for one day, you know, and just to be normal again. And look, that whole crew, you know, some cooperated.
Well, listen to me. Between me and you, he did go. I mean, it's not between me and you, between everybody.
No, I mean, like,
he did go.
I'm sure he wishes it could be like it was.
He wishes that he could just go back and just walk freely and go up and down Fresh Pond, stop in, have a coffee. Hey, quesadilla, what are you doing? You know, I know for a fact, but that's something that he's gonna have to live with. You know, it's sad, and I know that I know that once he has a few drinks, it kind of like eases the pain. Yeah, and that's why a lot of people in this life drink, drug. You know, it's just you gotta, you know. Forget. I've always said this on other shows, and I'm going to say it on your show as well. For the first time in my life, I could lay my head on my pillow and not have a worry. I can walk out this house, and I don't worry that I'm going to have somebody taking a shot at me.
I want to ask you about that and kind of connect it back, because you ultimately, you know, left New York. You know, you never really, you know, had to go to prison or anything. You kind of just were able to, you know, beat some cases and move on. I'll ask, when did that happen for you? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you about a couple of different people. We'll talk about Bosco and some others.
100%. So
when did that happen?
when my son was born in 2004, I made a promise I'd never carry a gun again, because I've been trying to have a kid for 8 years. Okay. And I said, I promise I'll never, like when my son was born, you know, Albanian community does the same thing. When your child is born, the guys go out and have their little party, they drink, they celebrate. So I had 30 strippers. I ordered them. They came to this Romanian bar. I shut the bar down, ran a tab all night. Vito Love showed up. People who showed love, they showed love. Okay. Everybody came and showed love. I think even Frankie, was it? Yeah, Frankie, I think stopped by because he didn't get sentenced yet. You know, I think he just got locked up right after that. But so I went home from the hospital that night once I got to see my son being born, and I took my gun, and you know, Balkan mentality, we shoot in the air, shoot to the heaven. Bah, 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 bah. I emptied out 19, took the gun, put it away, said I would never, and I never carried a gun after that again. Still in the life, still kind of doing things, but pulling myself away. And I came by Bobby Glasses, and this was the wake-up call. I had my kid in that little bassinet thing from the car seat, and he had a little tracksuit on. He had little Puma, you know, like low cats on, just like Daddy. And you know, somebody was asking me when I went to get a coffee. I put him down. Everybody's coming, putting money on him for good luck, $50, $100, and this guy goes, "Hey, when's he gonna follow into Daddy's footsteps?" You know, and I was like, "Whoa, I didn't think about that." Here I am grooming my son, and I'm like, "Yo, he's exposed to this life," you know. So I just was like, "Oh," and then Bobby was like, "Hey, let me talk to you outside." He goes, "Oh, beautiful kid," puts $100 on him. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just making a little, you know, yeah, I don't care about the envelopes." He goes, "You're bringing your kid around." He goes, "Are you collecting with your kid?" I said, "Yeah, leave him in the car. You know, who's going to say no to me? They know I'm running with you." He goes, "Pedge, that's not something, you know, I know you." He goes, "That's not something you want to be doing." I said, "I need to make money." He goes, "Then you leave your kids somewhere and think about getting out of this."
Right.
Move. He goes, "Move. Just get away from me." He goes, "You're a smart business guy. You could do, I'll fund you the money. What do you want to open up?" And that's Bobby. Bobby funded a lot of people on pizzerias and businesses and whatnot. And make a long story short, I didn't really listen. Okay. Still getting involved, but I kept looking to move. So I bought an acre in North New Jersey, custom built house. And I mean, I paid cash for the house. So, you know, just think about that. You know, crime doesn't pay, but you know, I was a little bit smart along the way to
It did kind of
put, yeah. Look, like I said before about karma coming full circle, I went through a nasty divorce. I lost the house in Jersey. I had to sell my apartment building in Glendale, and I had to start from zero, from scratch. I was only blessed to have my son. So when I left Jersey, because I had cancer, I had the divorce, I got a case thrown on me, but that case got squashed because I paid my lawyer. He did a little investigating and and fingers didn't point at me. It was a he said, she said. My ex-wife kind of opened her mouth and said some things to somebody, and this guy got pinched, and he got the inside story about me, details. Case was dropped. It was done. That was my godsend right there. The case was dropped. I beat cancer. I still have my son. My son does not, he hates his mom because she was, she cheated. She was yelling in the house. She's making problems. She spat on, I don't like to air my dirty laundry, but it is what it is. I was going through a real tough time. Okay. Again, who do I see? Bobby. Okay. I come to the neighborhood, pay my respects. Bobby goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing, this and that." He goes, "You're not running with those guys in Jersey, Costello Park?" I go, "No, I told him about the cancer." He goes, "Wow," knocks on wood, knocks on the table. He goes, "Yo, that's your sign. You didn't listen to me the first time." He goes, "Get the F out of here." I'm like, "Where do you want me to go?" He goes, "I don't care, but get away from the tri-state area. Go somewhere you don't know anybody." I said, "Where the hell am I going to go?" Now, I had a condo in Siesta Key that I luckily got rid of right before this divorce thing. So I kind of like, funneled that cash in a little safe deposit box just for a rainy day. And that rainy day was coming to Florida. So I'm in the gym and Vito comes in. Vito's like, "Hey, what's up?" Gives me a hug and a kiss. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." He goes, No, Pedge, what are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Pedge," and he whispers in my ear, "You moving juice? You selling the juice?" I said, "Yeah, for here and there." "Pedge, if I know The neighborhood knows. And you know how many rats are in this neighborhood? I just did 19 months. You need to get the F out of here. You got a beautiful kid. Don't F up. Yeah, okay, Vito. Yeah. He goes, Pedge, I'm not going to tell you again. I already started rolling it. You know, Bobby says something. Bobby's face. He was out on bail, but he was facing whatever life. I just was like, you know what? I started looking into Florida.
The end is near.
Yeah, so I found a spot. I met my fiance in New York. We all know each other through the community. She's 19 years younger than me. You know, I robbed the cradle, but
nice.
It is what it is. Yeah, and she's good to me. She's showing me what it's really like, you know, to be loved for real, not just because I got stuff. Because I don't got nothing. I don't got money like I had before, and that's the hardest thing. I shit you not, every picture that I have, I used to have $5,000 in my pocket. I used to make a joke, and like when I'd sweat, I'd pull out the stack of hundreds and go, wow, I'm so sweaty. You know, like that was my like little stick it in your face. I got money, you don't. But that was every night. I mean, I'm getting rent from the building. I got rent coming in at and Siesta Key on that, you know, condo I have on the water. I mean, I was making money hand over fist. It was good, but all good things come to an end. I lost everything.
That's the toughest part, I'm sure, from someone like yourself who you're used to making money so easily. Now you realize that's over. I got to go out and I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I settled my disability case because I screwed up my back really bad on the job. And so I finally settled it. You know, I got a little pension that comes in. I mean, thank God my fiance is making really good mony, and my son's doing cybersecurity. You know, I got a little vending business. It's not great, but you know, I mean, what I'm used to, 5 G's, 10 G's per whatever I'm doing. You know, I have like 30, 40 G's a month. I'm not spending lavishly, but I'm making 10 G's a month. You know, I got
what you have to do. Yeah.
So, you know, and I'm lucky that I knew a little bit about the vending business to get myself started here, you know.
Right.
So it's, you know, it starts from 1 machine to 15. I'm good at 15, you know. But it's really difficult, you know, living that life. It's a high. You know, like
that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, because like I always have a saying that I say, I look at $1 and I could make $1 into 10. Sure. It's just something that's instilled in me, like, you know, like a hustler mentality. Like when I first moved to Jersey, I left my garage open and I had about $10,000 in tools because at one time I had a little bit of a construction side business. Okay. So I left it open. I went to Queens to get more stuff. I come back. I see it's 7 o'clock at night. Sun goes down. My garage door is wide open. I'm like, oh my God, they robbed me. There's my mentality. Because if I would walk by and see somebody's garage open, I'd make sure, hey, nobody's home. I'm going in. I'm taking whatever tools. I know somebody's going to buy tools, you know, whatever, 10 cents on the dollar. You know what I mean? So that's the mentality. It's hard. Every once in a while, I catch myself being a klepto just to see if I still got it. Like, am I scared? Hells no. Like, you know, like I'll put a hat on, rip the tag off, and just walk out the store. Like, it's really, you know, idiotic. But that never leaves you, that life, you know. And the only reason I had my 10 minutes. Everybody has to have their 10 minutes of fame and learn. I kind of overstepped my 10 minutes. Maybe I got blessed with 45 minutes. But my time is done. You know, if a young buck steps to me now, you know, I'll be honest, bro. I mean, I can't no more. I got screws in my elbows from doing MMA and fighting. I got torn meniscus in my knee. I'm a fucking mess. All right. I got plates in my back. I'm done. But don't get me wrong. I mean, if somebody's going to disrespect me, I'll give it a good shot. I really don't care. I'm not going out like a punk. You know, like Dominic Cicale says, I'm going to do what I got to do. But I try to avoid it. I'm going to be honest, Jeff. I tried to avoid, you know, I'm used to like walking around, everybody knowing me. I'm here 8 years in Florida. Yeah, I made a name for myself. People know me. But it's not like it is in New York where I could just go to, you know, Home Depot and run into 15 people on the way, spend 3 hours just saying, hey, what's up? What you doing? What you got going on? It's just connections. And what I miss about that life is I used to go out all the time. And I did the math one night. I used to go out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. If I didn't blow 2 G's every night, doing what? Buying everybody drinks, buy that crew drinks, give them another round. You know, each round, you know, 12 guys, it's coming out to like $300, you know? So I'm buying everybody drinks. I'm picking up tabs. Why? Just for that connect. Just so people say, oh, he's an all right guy. He's got face. He's respect, you know? And then they'd be like, hey, I'll throw you a piece of business. You know, like I was notorious for doing watches. Like I used to get guys robbing watches, papers, box, everything. I would go and whatever, make $1,000 on the watch and sell it. I got a whole collection upstairs of Breitlings that I kept one for myself and sold, you know?
You definitely had an ability to move things. You definitely had an ability to do all sorts of different things. I want to say this though to you. I think the one thing that I noticed about your life,
yeah,
you have a fair better end than all the people I'm going to talk to you about right now. They all had much worse ends. We obviously know, Frank's life now. He's doing what he does just like you. He's trying to make his way through life with some of the regrets that he surely has. I want to ask you about another guy who is connected to Frank from a little different area, but he started moving around with those guys. You told me that Vito Guzzo is one of the craziest people you were ever around. So all the rumors are true about him. He served in nearly 40 years for 5 bodies. Most of his adult life has been in prison. What do you remember about him?
Just his eyes, his facial features. No effing around. There was no effing around with this guy. I mean, I don't know what anybody else says. I don't know what Frank says, but Frank probably like portrays it a little bit more like he was more friendly with him. I was like kind of the outsider. He would acknowledge me. He'd say, "What's up?" He'd shake my hand. You know, we make small talk. There was one specific time. There was an issue. There was a cafe called Stella de Notte. This one guy, Sal, had it. Then he sold it to the Giannini Crew. So I don't know if it was he sold it to Vito, or was it Paulie, or was it Fob, or was a conglomerate of these guys together. It was a small place. 5 tables in the front, poker room in the back, little kitchen. And I used to come there and have a coffee. I used to do my rounds. And that night, it was a lot of people out in front, all the Giannini guys. They would say, "What's up?" to me, whatever. I wasn't running with them, but we would always end up seeing each other somewhere in a club in the city, or, because there were like 40 of them. And they were from everywhere, like from Middle Village, from Maspeth, from Ridgewood, Glendale, everywhere. They would meet. And they ended up, I mean, maybe there was only 12 real Giannini Crew members, but it was when there was everybody together, it's like close to 40, and most of them were shooters. I'm gonna be honest. Most of them were ready to shoot. So I was in there, and I think it was, I forgot who it was. I can't remember. It escapes me. He came running in. Yo, this guy tried to clock me at Backdrafts. And Backdraft was a notorious place to hang out. Everybody from Forest Hills to Howard Beach to Ozone Park, everybody came out to hang out, at Backdrafts. Like a little club, on Austin Street. And he's like, pop, 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 pop. Right away, Tabita goes to the kitchen and just grabs a kitchen knife. He goes, "Let's go." And Paulie jumps out, this and that. And Vita goes, "You too." I was just like, okay. I didn't say no. I was always ready to, make my bones. I was always ready to do what I got to do. We get there, and we knew the bouncer, Mike. He was just somebody in the neighborhood too, big cock diesel guy. And Mike was like, no, you guys need to, fucking Tabita and Vito was just like, "No, get out of my way." And I was like, I just felt like something was going to pop off bad. But for some, I don't know, Vito kind of like turned his back. And then Tabita was like, "All right, but get him out here. And, it ended up being a little bit of a brawl. Nobody got stabbed, but they put fucking boots to this guy. Like,
So you would say that, people like him, you didn't want mad at you?
No. I'm going to be honest. I told you on the phone that Joe Pesci skit.
Yeah.
It's 100% Vito Guzzo, but it not so much, how do I make you funny? Why am I so funny? You tell me what you wouldn't even get that. You would be like, "Oh yeah, huh? Funny." In 10 seconds, it would just be like, boom. And Frankie told the story how he just turned around and, popped this guy. He was stone cold killer.
He has that hair trigger ability to do what he has to do.
Listen,
and that's the thing we don't realize about a lot of the people. These people have no issue doing these things. They do what they have to do.
It's second nature, man. Second nature.
I'm not going to call him a mentor, but a guy that, you obviously mentioned, and this was important too, he wasn't all bad, right? Bobby Glasses ultimately was given life for a double homicide that he caught, 30 years before. He died. He died several years ago. What do you say about that?
Well, my condolences to his family, and rest in peace. Sadly missed. I mean, he helped out a lot of people. He let a lot of Romanian, Serbian, Albanian people in the neighborhood borrow money to run their knitting mills at the time and open up establishments, keep the payroll flowing. Never sent anybody to muscle them. Would always be like, I'll give you a little leeway, but you got to give me something. You got to show, because I got to show. It's not just me. I got to show. And I mean, he did what he had to do when he had to. He would send goons down there.
Yeah.
And that's why he kind of like needed me. I speak Romanian and I speak Serbian. So he was like, these people. I'm like, yeah, they're from my village back home. He's like, can you go wisen them up a little bit? Like, this is the second week he's skipping on the juice. And I'm like, I'd go and they'd be like, oh, but you're good. We know each other. Your mother's my mother's cousin's first, whatever. And I'm like, yo, business is business. And that's why a lot of people in my community hated me, because I was strictly business is business. Like, when I started doing stuff on my own, and I don't care. Like, I let somebody in my family borrow money. And I said, if you're not going to be able to make payments, don't take the money from me. No, I'm going to make payments. 3 payments in. Oh, I don't have the money. Find a way to give me back the money. You know what? Just give me back my money. No juice. But I'll never let you borrow money again. So I learned never to let anybody in my family borrow money, because business is business, man. Like, you're hurting my pocket. Yep. Nobody thinks about that. But I mean, as a mentor was Boshko. Boshko was my, Boshko actually. Boshko is my mentor. When I met him, he took a liking to me. And I met him through this guy that I told you when I was about 16, 17. He was like a father figure to me. He took me to this place called the Adriatic. It was in Manhattan, Croatian owner, but it was a Yugoslavian establishment, live music and whatnot. And I went there, and right away he introduces me to Punch's dad, Vojislav Stanimirovic. He goes, this is Chica Voja. Chica means uncle. So he goes, this is Chica Voja. I was like, nice to meet you. Sit, have a drink, We sitting there drinking, and we get up to go to our table after, and it was just everybody was coming to that table and going somewhere else. Everybody was coming to that table, and then Bosco comes in, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, let me introduce you to this guy. And then I go up, and he's just like, Boshko in Serbian. He goes, this is like almost like a son to me, and this and that. He wants to meet you, and like we get introduced, and he goes, what are you doing? Because he saw I was like dressed up in a tacchini, like I'm Italian. He goes, you hang out with Italians? What neighborhood? I go, Ridgewood. Oh, before you leave, come see me. I got some guys in Ridgewood. Like, he knew one player to another. He knew that Balkan mentality, that I was into something. I just had that like scheming face. I'm sorry, my face is very schemy.
It is.
And thank you. So, but I mean, I would do anything to be around these mobsters. Like, I'd go to Panarella in the city just to hobnob. I would wait 3 hours for one like gangster to walk in. I'd be like, hey, bottle of Hennessy for him. It's 150.
You were like,
boom.
You were like some of these people on YouTube. You were a mob, guy.
Listen, I loved it. I just loved.
But you were willing to put in work.
I was. Like, I'm gonna be honest. There came a couple of times where the older guys, like the guy Sava the boxer, this other guy Steve Karatista, I mean, nut jobs in the neighborhood, connected, and they're just like, hey, we're gonna go do some. Come take a ride. Because they knew I was ready to go. Like, they knew I was
ready to do what you got to do.
Yeah, they were just like, let's go. And no questions asked. I'd just be like, who? Like, that guy. Oh, boom, come on, pull out the bat, crack him straight in the head. I didn't care. But, like I said, it's a young man's game. When you get older, man, it's like, I don't want to be tasseling on the floor with somebody. I try to avoid. I just went out Saturday, and I ran into a couple of people that would give me the stink eye, but because I'm not known down here. But I do know some well-known people. And who walks in? A well-known character down here who's in that life. Comes up to me, hey, Pedge, hey, how you been? I'm like, good. Once everybody saw I was good with this guy, drinks started coming my way. I don't even know who these people are. All like in their 20s.
Well, I think you learned the greatest thing about life. And a lot of people on YouTube, they always say, how does Jeff get to do all these things? How does he have all these followers? How does he meet these people?
But
the most important thing in life is connections.
That's right.
Meeting people, knowing people. The sooner you meet people, the sooner you grow your prestige.
Yeah, like
this person.
You're 100%, correct on that. And that's why I told you, hence when I was younger, I moved around a lot.
Yes.
I would always work on my gut. Like I did cigarettes for a while. All right. I even had Albanians trying to muscle in my territory, which I had to basically put up a stand. And the stand was blood for blood, because you know how Albanians run. It's blood for blood. So, I wasn't going to just show the gun. I was like, if I pull it out, I'm going to do what I got to do. And they were like, but these weren't Albanians from Montenegro. These were straight Albanians from Albania. They didn't want anything to do with that group. They were just trying to make a name for themselves. It was right when that pyramid scam went bad and everybody was running out of Albania. So in Ridgewood, a big influx from Albania came. And they gave me respect. I gave them respect. I said, look, you could do these cafes. I'm going to stick with these because these are my peoples. And I've been doing this for about a year. But when I got that feeling like, you know what, I don't think this is going to go well. I was moving a lot of cigarettes. I mean, 1,500 to 5,000 cartons a month, and that was just me. I had nobody working for me. I would just go around, drop off boxes at each cafe. And I just got this bad feeling. And I said, I'm going to stop. So I kind of like sold my spot to somebody else. Said, here's how I do it. Here's whatever. Give me 10 G's and it's yours. The guy gives me 10 G's. Sure enough, 6 months later, Mayor Giuliani starts doing this backtracking on anybody that used the credit card to pay tax on the cigarettes, to this, to that. I was just like, just made it by the skin of my teeth. And I was just like, done. So I was blessed, lucky. Yeah, I got arrested a bunch of times. I had to expunge my record, because when I went to have the bar, I couldn't carry a license in my name. I had too many felonies, but I got good. I got I was smart. I got caught with a gun once. The second time, it was like, you can't, plead to the judge, like wrong place, wrong time, wasn't mine, blah, blah, blah. My lawyer told me the trick. He goes, you're getting pulled over by a cop, empty the clip, bullets out, throw the gun on the side. What they're catching you with, misdemeanor gun possession. You don't do time. It's a $500 desk appearance. I did that once, did that twice. You run your luck with that. You can't do it a fourth time. You understand what I'm saying?
But what you're saying is life is, again, about who you know, and it's also about knowledge, which I try to tell people. Know the law, know what you can, know what you can't do. And you're kind of a perfect representation. You never really did any time. You got out. I get two more questions, and then we'll talk about you're doing a show with your son, which is pretty cool.
Sir. Yes, sir.
I got to ask you, you told me at one point you met Jack Garcia. Is that true?
Yeah. What
the FBI agent?
Yeah, the kick in the ass with that was I did the Reform Report a bunch of times. I think I did about 11 interviews. We did something on the Balkans. We did a Bobby Glasses special. I wanted to show a different side. I don't want to put the Serbs and the Balkan people on the map as well. I notice I don't shit on anybody, So he had Jack Garcia on, I think twice.
I've had him on here as well. He's a good guy.
And when the picture came up, as I'm watching the interview, it's a telephone interview. So I text the guy and I said, can you please call me, Mike? And Mike calls me. He goes, hey, what's up? I said, Jack Garcia is a fucking Fed. He goes, yeah. I said, I met him, right? He goes, get out of here. I'm going to call him and ask him. I go, show him my picture and just ask him, did he see me? And I was just replaying in my head, what the hell did I ever say? And what, you're trying to, he used to come by Bob. He used to come by Bobby's spot. That's how I met him. He came in, what's up, kid? He would say hi to everybody. What's up, this and that. And then I'd go in the back, because it wasn't a closed door meeting. I'd go in the back. He'd be sitting with Bobby. And Bobby introduces me to him. He's like, hey, it's so-and-so, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. He goes, hey, what are you in? I'm like, no, little this, little that, whatever. He goes, he's a good earner, So I was just like, lucky for me that he was doing an investigation on all of us, the whole area. But then the Rudai thing came into play, and he dropped Rudai, because it was a bigger fish. It was a big, if anybody knows about what Rudai was doing, Rudai just straight came out of left field, unified the Albanian community, took charge, and his right-hand man, I forgot his last name. I think it's Rudai, Nicky Rudai. I knew him. Deadeye, that's right, Deadeye. I knew him when he used to work at Sue's Rendezvous as a bouncer. I knew that he was moving a little coke, a little weed, and he was, working the door. And he opened up a place in the Bronx on the water, a nice, a little seafood place. And I seen him when he got out of a bid. He did either a 4-year bid. He got out. He saw me in some strip bar, some titty bar that some Greeks had. And he was just like, hey, what's going on? Yet now he's got a big Albanian eagle tattooed. And I'm just like, hey, what's up, Nick? He spoke Serbian too. And he's like, hey, what's going on? How you been? What you got going on? I'm like, little this, little that. Gives me a business call. Come see me. I got this new seafood place. You know, you and your family eat, eat on me. I'm like, yo, I appreciate that. And then shortly thereafter, like, the whole crew went down.
Yeah, those guys were, they do documentaries about them now, but
I know
Jack's a good guy. He obviously it wasn't just a mob he broke. He ended up breaking that group up in the Bronx.
Yes.
Palma and those guys.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about this whole community we have on here, right? This mob tube thing. Okay. Do you watch any of this type of content? Are you still?
Well, you know what? I watch only because it kind of reminisces and brings me back. But a lot of times, I'm gonna be honest, it's a tit for tat. It's this thing with Gene going against Joey Merlino, and then Dominic's getting involved, and then
I've gotten involved.
Listen, it reminds me of the fucking petty shit that's in the streets that would get you whacked, literally. Yeah, they say, oh, you can't touch a made guy, yet they're touching each other like constantly. It's just like do as I say, don't do as I do.
That's funny you bring that up. I gotta ask you, because you were in the streets for many years, and I'm not trying to start any issue. I'm just curious.
No worries.
Did you? You grew up around the hardest of people.
Yes.
You were around very strong.
I was very blessed to call a lot of them my friends.
Yeah,
and most of them were associates. Just hey, if you need something, go see Pedge.
We're talking about Vito Guzzo, Bobby Glasses. People like that.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see a day where you'd see one of these people on the internet on a podcast?
No. I swear to God.
What do you think Bobby Glasses would say about a boss supposedly doing a pocket? What do you think he would say about that?
He'd put an order on him. I'm sorry. There would be a sit down right there on the commission and be like, we need to get rid of this guy. Guy's doing a little too much talk. Because, talk is talk. They all say that they don't want to talk about what they've done in the past. But when they're sitting there together, they're talking. They're going back and forth going, hey, remember when I stuck an ice pick in that guy? It's a joke. But no, it's true. It's between, there's that camaraderie between killers and gangsters.
But you're not sitting here with one of these.
No.
That's the difference.
Listen to me. I don't want anybody to think that this is what I live for, to do MobTube. I did it, as I said, for a favor for Frankie, because I tell a colorful story. And I'm not just grasping stuff at the last minute to make it up. This is stuff that I have pictures of, and I don't want to hand out more pictures because I'm trying to write a book, and I have really good pictures with me elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with these people. And I need something for me, so I could, put out. But I never thought I'd ever talk, like to come on. I did it for Frankie. I got a good response on it. The haters and the trolls didn't come out till like when I went to a different channel. And then it just got, I know people are just doing it, and I got a show now. You got a show. It's people are doing it just to irk the shit out of you, just to get you to.
You can't escape. I always tell people this. Like, I've been in content a long time. You can't escape.
Yeah.
You're never going to make everyone truly happy. You could cure cancer tomorrow, Pedge, and someone would bitch because you didn't do it fast enough. It's
right.
I have a friend in this business, RJ. He's the nicest guy you could ever meet, and he even gets shit. But it's just is what it is. You're doing a show now with your son. There he is. There's you and him. The Mood Lounge show. I actually saw a video of yours once. You were talking about Frank, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was called like Tales from the Street or something. But you just kind of talk about different things, right?
Yeah. What I do is I just talk whatever's the hot topic of the week. So I search for content like, Monday through Friday. I search for content. If something really sticks out at me, or I feel something, it's a point of interest, I'll jot it down, make a bullet point. My son does the same thing. And then the way I'm like a character, you can see I'm a character, I go into little tangents where I do imitations, I do funny skits. And that's what Frankie remembers about me. That's what all these guys, when Pedge would come around, hey, imitate Sal the horse. And I'd be like imitating him when he's playing pool. Is she on the bowl? Like I would do things just to make people laugh. I was like an asset to have around. Everybody's feeling blue. Pedge would make you feel good, So that's what we do on the show. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but we talk about everything. We talk a little politics. But I'm branching out now where I do the stories of the street. So every once in a while, I'm going to do a story from the street. I'm looking to get some guests on from the old days, from Bushwick. You know, Punch is Punch is going to be on. I'm going to go in depth 3 hours with him, but I'm only going to put up half an hour slots here and there. I don't want to delve into it and just start doing guests, because then everybody's going to expect me to have guests every show. And you know, it's hard to find quality. It's hard to find people. You got to do your homework.
Yeah, you really gotta
do your due diligence. Yeah. Like when we spoke, I told you, I hope you talk to Frankie. I don't want you going blind into it. In this world, you need to get somebody to vouch for you. And Frankie's gonna vouch, because you know, it's not that he's doing me a solid. He's doing himself a solid as well, you know. And he's got a new show out. He hit me to it the other day, and he was just like, check it out. And it's not bad, you know. It's Frankie in his element, you know.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you check out those guys. I'm gonna link your channel. Make sure everybody goes subscribe to Pedge and his son. Pedge, I got one final question, then we'll get you out of here. Sure. I always ask this to all the people that I speak to, mostly the criminal side of them. Do you regret your life?
You know what I really regret? I regret that.
Like, what if you would have just, instead of, you know, stealing people's bikes when you were a child, you went to school, you got an education, you didn't become your father, you didn't do all this stuff you did. Do you regret that side of it?
I do. There was a Turkish guy that was working in a Fresh Pond Diner. He was a cook. He heard me talking history, and he came out. He goes, "Where'd you study?" I said, "Nowhere. I just read books." He goes, "You're very smart on history." And he starts breaking down some stuff. He was a history major back in Turkey. And when he came to the United States, you know, he never followed his dream to do it here in the United States because of his accent and whatnot. And he told me, he goes, "It's never too late. Never too late." I would have loved to have learned history. I aced history in school. Geography and history, I aced. I knew about the Sumerian culture. I knew about Genghis Khan. I knew everything that nobody cared about, I knew. And it would have been, in today's world, nice for me to spew some truth, my version of it, what I studied and what I read, because I have, in my living room, I have close to 1,000 books, and it's a lot of history books, stuff on the Balkans, Eastern European history, South American history, you know, all of that. So yeah, maybe I had the right push. If somebody would have pushed me in that direction, it wasn't that I was easily swayed. It was just, look, I'm going to be honest. My mom had to work 2 jobs. She was never home. I was a latchkey kid. And when she met that character, that gangster guy, which, mind you, ended up to be a rat, he got caught with a key of coke and money, and he ended up ratting. I found that out later on in life. But being around him and him just pounding my head with nonsense, like disrespect women, your mom's a hoe, your mom's a bitch, all women are bitches, you know, you need to go out and grab what you want in life, take it. Like, you don't tell a 7, 8, 9-year-old that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you were kind of, your life was decided for you already.
And I hated this guy, and I just found out that he just dropped dead, and I was so happy. I was like, because I had a run-in with him later in my life where he kind of stepped to me, and I just put the gun on the table, and I said, it's going of 2 ways. You either walking out that door, or I'm going to shoot you in this bar, and I'll do my time. I really don't care. I'll go back and live in Serbia. There's no extradition. That was one of the things that back in the day, everybody knew. And I sent you a picture of this kid, Phil, Crazy Phil. Crazy Phil spoke to Vito Guzzo one time. And I don't know what the thing is, but Phil came back and told me, he goes, I know the only Yugo I know is you. He goes, and he was saying, he goes, don't mess around with those Yugos, especially that guy, you know, so-and-so. They'll pop you and go back home. They'll go hide in the mountains. They don't care. Those Balkan guys, you know, they're nuts, bro. So, you know, I was like, yo, for real? He said that? He goes, yeah. I was like, nah, I don't. I could see him saying it like tongue in cheek, but I know Vito didn't take it to heart. Maybe he was just warning somebody, but you know, Vito was stone cold, bro. Stone cold.
That he was. And I would always advise, little piece of advice, if you're ever going to do dirt, go to a non-extradition country. Research that.
100%.
Preferably an oath-fact country where we don't do business with them at all. Those would be your, you're going to live in, Morocco or somewhere like that. But it ain't too bad. Pedge, I feel like we've talked about it all. Maybe we'll get you back on again at some point. We'll go a little bit more in depth with the Bosco and everything. And yeah, it was good talking to you. Make sure everybody checks out Pedge. You can reach out to him on his show, the Mood Lounge show. I'm going to link it in the description. Pedge, thanks for coming on, sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're a great storyteller. You have a lot of
Thank you.
experience, and
Thank you.
you lived an interesting life, my man.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week here on the Sit Down.